Hi, this video I had to knock off because it's basically a quick response to my good friend Bob Fortini when he talked about, it was something about what the Democrats were for or against. And basically, as I look here, pardon me, democracy, universal health care. By the way, I think single-payer health care is a really good thing for the U.S. I think the U.S. system is pretty crazy, but basically the way they're trying to do it is eliminate any kind of private or insurance-based healthcare. So I think people should have healthcare provided taxpayer funded, but I think if you want to have an alternative, that should be available also. And Bernie's program, at least the last one he offered, was one where if you had healthcare, if you had taxpayer provided healthcare, then insurance companies wouldn't exist and you couldn't get private healthcare. Let's see what else is up. What else we got here? Universal pre-K. I think that's fine, no problem with that. But then again, the problem we have with education in this country is we spend more money than anyone else and we get crappier results. So therefore, I think parents should be able to pick and select their schools. So if you've got that, then you've got me. But the other way is just more government control. In other words, now you're pushing government control further down without giving parents options. Let's see what else do we have here. Women's rights. I don't know. Does this mean that abortion on demand till the 9th month should be available? Because that's whenever I hear women's rights, that's basically what it appears that whoever's pushing this forward sees as women's rights. So again, that as far as I'm concerned, not involved with, I don't care about. So yeah, I don't understand where that comes from. Voting rights. If voting rights means that you could just show up wherever you want to and say, hey, I want to vote, I think I've got a problem with that, because if I need a license to get on an airline, when I go cash a check, I need to show ID. Heck, if you're younger than 21 or what have you, you've got to show. Look, I think I'm all for voting rights, particularly as someone of my persuasion and background. I'm all for voting rights, but what I'm not for is that basically anybody can show up at any time and say they want to vote, or can mail the vote in from God knows where, and there's no verification. I think that anyone who goes for it, that's just stupid. That's like basically, I don't know. I don't even know how anyone could support that. Child tax credits, I think that's great. Let's see, comments. When I hear common sense gun reform, I always think about where I grew up. I grew up in New York City, in New York State. And in that place, if you look at the law, you can't have a penknife more than 3 fingers long. If anything bigger than that, it's considered a deadly weapon. Nunchucks are weapons, everything. And that's a place where they claim they've got common sense gun control. So no, common sense gun control. If that means the only people that can have guns are celebrities or those that are politically connected, which is the way it is in New York, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, then yes, I don't want that. And by the way, common sense gun control, what that means is that the ATF, for example, in New York City, if you're just traveling through and you happen to have a bullet or an empty magazine in your luggage, they'll take you to jail. So that's out. Let's see, vaccination. Vaccination, I think, is great. And I was vaccinated when I was a kid, and all that's good. But I think the problem is when someone comes up with a vaccine in 20 minutes in the lab somewhere, then all of a sudden it gets mandated for everyone. I think there should be some pause there. Let's see what else does. Minimum wage increases. I think minimum wage increases are ridiculous, because this whole living wage thing, that's madness. Because if I'm running a business, and I've run many businesses, I've never paid the minimum wage. I've always paid way over that. You know why? Because I don't need any minimum wage people. And if I'm running a small restaurant or whatever, family owned or what have you, and now I've got to pay someone X amount of money that the business doesn't support, I'm out of business or they're out of a job. Either way, the minimum wage isn't going to happen. And by the way, you can see that happen in California very recently. So I don't even know where these people come up with these things. Let's see, what else does my friend Bobby want? Tax increases on the wealthy. I think that's very reasonable, but I think for any tax increase you have on the wealthy, I think should be balanced by a cut in expenditures. Because if not, you're caught on a treadmill where Every time someone gets we used to call it, in the military, it's called the nice idea fairy. So anytime someone has a nice idea, let's fund it, and they fund it with taxpayer money, then it just balloons, balloons, and balloons. And right now, guys, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but the debt we're carrying is a huge debt. So it's not like we're even funding it as we go. We're not paying it. We're like somebody who has maxed out their credit cards and is struggling to make minimum payments. So if we're going to increase our input, if we're going to get a raise, I think the way people seem to look at this in the United States is, well, we got a raise. Guess what? That means we could max out our cards some more. So that's why I don't think, and that's the Democrats' method of operation. That's their modus operandi. Let's see, protecting the environment. If protecting the environment means I can't build certain things on property that I own, and I've got to go through a bunch, I think that's a problem. Again, Bob, that's extending government control over stuff. Okay, let's see. Family paid leave. Yeah, sure, why not? Immigration reform. Immigration reform, and I think there's a wonderful person, my friend Lois. I think for her, immigration reform would be anybody with a pulse that can convert carbon dioxide, oxygen to carbon dioxide, and has a sob story, come right on in. There's a finite amount of space here, finite amount of things that can be done in the United States. The United States is not the end game of everyone who has a problem in their country. It's just, that's not a tenable situation. And not only that, but also culturally, it becomes a problem. Look at every other country. Look what's happening. Sweden, Norway, Germany, Italy. It's not tenable. If there are problems, we've got to figure out a way to solve it at the root cause so that no one has to come here, or a minimum number of people come here. But immigration reform, I think we had immigration reform under Biden, and 10 million people came into the United States. If that's what immigration reform means, again, madness. Lastly, let's see what else Bobby's got here. Tax breaks for the wealthy. Yeah, I don't know if wealthy people need that many tax. Controlling women's body. Look, as far as I'm concerned, if someone wants to have an abortion or wants to kill their kid as it pops out, I think that's on them. I want no part of it. That's like when I get these women, oh, my body, my right to choose. From my perspective, please, you choose. I want to be absolved of any responsibility for any choices you make. As far as I'm concerned, I'm down with that all the way. Easy access to guns. Easy access to guns is easy access to guns or no access to guns. If I'm going to err on one side or the other, I go for let's get access to guns. Because in my personal experience, I'm here in Florida, and I was also used to live in Virginia. Love it a lot more than in New York. In New York, the only people who have guns, there are three classes of people who have guns. Cops have guns, criminals have guns, and if you're connected or a celebrity, you've got guns. If you're a regular person, good luck getting a gun. With that, Bob, I just wanted to rather than writing all this down, I wanted you to know where I stood. I think that all of those programs, if you really look behind them, they're just ways where the government is going to have more control. And I think the operative difference, if you want to understand my philosophy and my answers to dealing with my friends, is most of you guys want more government intervention. You want more government in healthcare, more government in immigration, more government in controlling what you can do, more government into what you put into your body, unless you're a woman. If you're a woman, then, no government control on that. But these are the kinds of, it's just crazy. That's the lens through which I see these things there are those people who like the government, who believe in the government, that the government can do things better. So therefore, they want to give as much power as possible to the government. I tend to have not even a conservative or Republican streak, a more libertarian. I'd like the government to do less, because I want the government not to be up my ass 24/7, where there's people who want the government to cover their ass 24/7. I think that's the operative, particularly this is videos from my friends. If you want to understand where I'm coming from is I don't want the government involved. I think the less government gets involved in my life, the better I like it. Whereas I think I see in a lot of my friends is their solution to every problem is the government. Hey guys, thanks a lot. Bob, this is for you, because I thought that was a very nice chart. I just think, and I don't think that you're necessarily wrong. I just want to tell you that there's another way of looking at your chart. You look at your chart as the Democrats are really great. They're doing great things for people. They're not. They're picking our pockets, and then the bureaucracy, the government, then decides what happens next. I'd rather keep my money. I'd rather keep my authority. I'd rather do things myself rather than have the government do it for me. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a great Sunday.